Let's move over to your mom for a second.
Okay, very different trajectory. My mom grew up in New Hampshire, in Manchester, and basically she was the oldest of 7 kids on a farm in Manchester. But my grandmother had a quartet. My grandmother actually played stride piano, and she was a real, as she would say, a real pip. I mean, she was a French-Canadian, but just loved music and just really got out there, kind of a pioneer. Didn't really adhere to a lot of the standards of what, housewives and mothers should be doing, but she was really a proponent of just getting out there and playing. So my mom started singing early on, and she sang in a band. I'm trying to think of, the last name was Carr, and I can't remember the first name, but she ended up with the Ted Herbert Band, which is a big band up there. And then she ended up, her name at the time was Carmen Akins, and back then you had your name up on a marquee, like who was the singer that night, and it was really important for people because it's usually a mecca for dancers to come, and so they wanted to know who the singer was. And Carmen was both a male and a female name, and nobody knew if it were a male singer, female singer, so she changed her name early on to Nancy Carr, and Carr came from Carmen, and that way it was definitely feminine, people knew. But she ended up being basically the house singer for the house band for the Totem Pole Orchestra, the Bob Batchelor Totem Pole Orchestra, for a number of years, which was in Norumbega Park, which now I think there's a Marriott that sits on that land, but it was a huge ballroom. There are photos online, and you probably have some of them. She's reached out and connected with the sons and daughters of the owners, but so many great bands came through, and name bands and regional bands came through that club, and it was a beautiful ballroom. And some of the rules were, like, for example, you couldn't go there stag, you couldn't go there without a date, or you couldn't just be a single guy and go there. There was such a level of decorum back then. I think it was alcohol free too.
It was?
Yeah, and this is all just things I'm just remembering off the top of my head, but until it burned down in the 60s, she was the singer there. Later on, she, out of, I don't know, having to support a couple of kids as a single mother, she ended up doing like the lounge circuit. The club scene. So she was back in the 70s when, the Hiltons and the Sheratons had live bands 5-6 nights a week. She was one of those bands.
This would be more with quartets and quintets?
Exactly, yeah. And she ended up meeting my stepfather, who at that time, who was a fantastic organ player, who actually went to Berkeley when organ was a major. Yeah. There was actually it was an organ major. Wow. So he actually went there when it was actually offered. So
what is his name?
His name, he passed away, but his name is Michael Cardoza. Mm-hmm. And a very, very good player. I mean, kick off your shoes with your stocking feet, and great bass pedal player, and B3 player. That was his main instrument, was B3 versus piano. Yeah. So they had a trio together, and that's really what attracted me to start singing and playing. It was not in the jazz genre or the American songbook. That didn't happen till years later.